Greetings and welcome to this webcast. My name is Jonathan Foust, and I'm delighted to have this time with you. Thank you so much for making the time. Got a really interesting topic, which I think you will find helpful. It's one that's instrumental in my own practice and really adds to this sense of presence. When do you take action and when do you rest in presence? That's what we're going to explore. And we're going to start off with a short meditation after I thank our producers, Glenn Harrison and Leo Gimo, for all they do to make this happen, to the Insight Meditation Community of Washington for hosting this as well, and to my friends at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Arlington, Virginia, where there is a live Monday night event happening. Also, a big thank you to our Mindful Movement leader, to Rita Moran, and to our Mindful Dialogue leader, Ray Manioki. The entire smorgasbord, if you are so interested. 6:30 Eastern Standard, Mindful Movement with Rita, which will massage and prep you for this meditation and talk. And afterward, a time to gather with like-minded people to share about your practice, share about the talk, what's relevant in mindful daily living with Ray Manioki, who's a wonderful, wonderful leader. Those links are on my Facebook page and on my website. They're both Zoom gatherings. Finally, this is all offered freely, so no one is denied access to these teachings. I love offering this in this format because it truly means anyone who's interested gets full access. And if you're inspired to help support this, thank you for your support. There are obviously costs that go into this, and defraying those costs is very much appreciated. Okay, without further ado, let's be. If you like, close both of your eyes. Take a moment just to honor this transition from focusing outward to beginning to sense inward. And if you just take a moment right now, just notice everything you can sense in the physical body. Any areas that feel tight or constricted, any areas that feel pleasant. Any areas that feel in between. Temperature of the air against your skin. Just sensing for a few moments what it's like just to take in the moment directly through this felt sense of aliveness. And you might take stock and sense what's present in what we might call the emotional body. The kind of the limbic system, the quality of heart, the quality of feeling. Does the heart feel open and spacious? Does it feel a little closed and guarded? Are there any strong emotions that are present right now that you might identify? And sensing now what we might call awareness of the mental body, the quality of thoughts, the quality of narrative. Is the mind filled with an inner conversation? Is the mind somewhat spacious? Is there some predominant storyline that's playing through in your life recently? And sensing now what we might call presence. Just the quality of feeling, the quality of here. How do you perceive that? And is it possible for you to sense who you are as the observer of all this phenomena? The capacity to observe without judgment, without wanting anything different than how it actually is. And you might bring your attention now to the movement of breath on the inside. Where do you feel the breath the most predominant? And is it possible to rest your attention here, noticing the inflow, that pause, and then the outflow and the pause? And as you sense the breath, you might also just sense what it's like to relax the muscles of your face. Is it possible for your face to become expressionless? If you feel the inside of your mouth, could you relax your tongue? Could you feel the inside of your lips, the volume of your lips? You might take a few moments to feel from the shoulders down through the elbows, the elbows down through your wrists, and sensing now the volume, the space that you can sense inside your palms and thumbs and fingers. And can you feel the weight and the volume of your arms as you sense from the inside out? Where is the breath right now? You might now bring your attention down into your belly. And noting how the more you relax, the more you can feel. And is it possible to detect all the movement in the belly associated with the breathing? The sense of the belly rising on the in-breath, falling on the out-breath. And is there anything here that could relax or soften or let go even more? And can you feel the length and the volume of your legs from the hip joints down through the knees? The knees down through your ankles. The tops of your feet and your toes. And now the soles of the feet and the heels. Sensing from the inside out. And sensing from the crown of the head to the heels, what could relax or soften inside even more? And you might again notice where you feel the breath. And exploring here, feeling the breath from the inside out, and noticing this inner paradox of deep relaxation and concentration. And as your mind will naturally generate more thoughts and some will get sticky, when you notice your mind far away, notice how gently you can guide your attention back to re-arrive in the here and now. relaxed, and at the same time alert. In these remaining minutes, you might again just inquire inside what could relax or soften or let go right now. What could relax or soften even more than that? And can you sense this quality of what some call the observer, the witness? Awake to what is here and awake to what is changing. And you might explore now, dropping any sense of doing, any concentration, any attempt to control your experience, and explore what it means to simply be. Is it possible to let things unfold all by themselves? Noting this quality of spaciousness, quality of allowing. And you might, in your own time, begin to, again, feel the breath, and you might find it helpful to deepen your breath a little bit. Notice the sounds around you. Notice the quality of presence. You might, again, just feel the physical body. You sense the emotional body, the quality of heart, quality of feeling. The mental body, quality of mind. And again, this sense of here and now, open awareness. And as you're ready, you might begin to stretch and move, adjust your posture in any way that feels good. Take your time for your transition. And welcome back. The word sutra or sutta means a thread. It's a teaching that contains a potential truth. Something that is true no matter what year it is, no matter what your culture is. In Buddhist practice, we have the Satipatthana Sutta, which is like the primary discourse on instructions for meditation, just completely stripped down. Bare bones, ultra simple, all the extraneous words are stripped away. And then you may have heard of the Diamond Sutra or the Lotus Sutra. Sanskrit, the word is sutra. In Pali, the original language of the Buddha, it's sutta. The Metta Sutta, for example, is a very short, stripped down discourse on loving kindness. I've always been impressed with the more modernized, what I think of as the Frank Sinatra Sutta. Again, boiled down truth, as simple as possible. It's only 5 words. These are probably familiar to you, but they're so powerful. Do be, do. Old joke. I like to talk about the balance of do and be, the balance of effort and surrender in practice. I'd like to talk about the practices of doing, the practices of being, the practices of knowing that arise out of this co-arising doing-being inquiry. And then ways to sort of explore how you can skillfully apply when to do and when to be in your life. And I know you know what it's like to have something to do and calling on that inner strength to power through it. When you're working out, when you're on an edge, you apply yourself, and then there's that rush of release after the effort, that sense of accomplishment that's so juicy. Even when you get the project out the door, the final effort, so good. The joy that comes from the release of sustaining attention. Now, when it comes to meditation practice, in the Buddha's time, you may know the story where he very famously resolved that he was going to sit still and not get up from his meditation cushion until he truly grasped the nature of reality, until he was awakened. And as he sat with that sense of strong determination, he was challenged deeply by what's referred to as Maya, or illusion. All the illusions, all the nature of minds, all came up. And he stayed present in his practice with kind of due diligence and had his final breakthrough. And there are lots of stories of spiritual adepts who pushed through. They went beyond their limits. They opened to new horizons in their life through willpower. Vision quests are often about this. I remember doing a vision quest, so many years ago. It was done in the Native American tradition, where you took a string and you put the string a little space, and you resolved not to go outside the string, your little area, and you stay up all night, vigilant, kind of waiting for an image. And I remember on that particular vision quest, it was really quite powerful. I was on a granite ledge overlooking this valley in western Massachusetts, and I kind of went into sort of a torpor, slothful thing in the middle of the night, and I heard this like thunderous sound around me. It was pitch dark, and there were the hooves of a herd of deer, and I was surrounded by deer in pitch dark, and hearing them breathe. And they were checking me out, I was checking them out, and it was one of those moments of just feeling this contact with another species. The Native Americans would often refer to brother deer, brother bear, and I really got the entity of these deer, this like strong and very, very powerful presence. But that breakthrough came through vigilance. And again, we've all done this. You've done this. You've applied attention, you've stayed on it, you've challenges, and along the way, there are breakthroughs. So cultivating your capacity for paying attention on purpose, sustaining attention on purpose, is really, really handy. It's a very, very powerful approach. And I thought we might do a short little practice. If you're driving, don't do it. But you might apply some variation. There's something really interesting here. This is referred to as the aditan meditation, or the sitting of strong determination. You sit with an intention not to move an unnecessary muscle. So we'll do this just for a few minutes, but I think it's helpful to kind of get a taste of how this practice sometimes can really rivet your attention. So if you like, and I'm going to be timing, if you would, bring your attention to your breath, and if you like, you can close your eyes. And let your breath be completely free and unrestricted. Let your body adjust, find any little wiggles you need to work out, and then let your body be perfectly still. And as you focus now on the breath moving in, the breath moving out, also include the intention not to move an unnecessary muscle. You might also sense, without moving, if you could relax a little bit more on the inside. We'll do one more minute. Relaxed, at the same time alert, not moving an unnecessary muscle. And now, if you would, you can release the practice, but just feel anything that may have shifted in that short meditation. You may have found it really difficult. If your mind was super agitated or a lot of physical discomfort, you might have found it kind of riveting, like really drawing your attention to the here and now. Now, some meditation techniques really emphasize this approach of really using strong determination, developing concentration that can take you deeper and deeper into non-ordinary states. There's a potential. I've done some retreats where we've done the sitting of strong determination every day, and I found some of them were incredibly riveting and focused and kind of blissful. Others were absolutely just pure torture, depending on my state. But the Buddha engaged into practices of concentration and focus, also including denying himself food, water, as part of developing his fortitude, his resilience, his focus. And again, there are some traditions that focus almost seemingly exclusively, or at least in the beginning of practice, it's all about developing that sense of willful concentration. It can take you into incredible states. If you know anything of the jhanas, the concentration states, they're incredibly powerful. And it's gained through the cultivation of effort, kind of the fire that goes with discipline. There is absolutely a place and importance for focus and concentration in your meditation practice. When my mind is really scattered, when I'm kind of over emotional, getting concentrated actually helps to calm me. Seems paradoxical, but when you become one-pointed, you become more calm. So really important. However, as I've said before so many times, there are some very concentrated, miserable people on the planet. It's not all about concentration. There's something else that we need to include in our practice to really experience kind of both wings, the kind of the full expression of what we call mindfulness. And this has to do with the practices of, we have to do kind of like with being, with actually relaxing. Have you ever left the house sensing you left something behind and later, oh, that's what it is? That little insight, if you will, kind of comes through relaxing and letting go. So relaxing and letting go is really integral. Again, another component of the practice. You may not know that joke of the two couples who are having a conversation, and one guy says, wow, we went to such a great restaurant last night. It's probably the best place we've been to. And the guy says, wow, what's the name? The guy goes, oh, geez. What's the name of a flower? He goes, tulip? No, that's not it. Gardenia? No, that's not it. Rose? Oh, right. Hey, Rose, what was the name of that restaurant we went to? It's not that kind of forgetting, but when we tense up, it inhibits our sense of intuition. I love this story of this guy he's giving a speech, first time kind of giving a speech. He's at a school assembly, there's the whole thing up there, and he's giving this talk, but as he's talking, he notices that his shirt keeps getting untucked. So all through his speech, he's tucking his shirt down the back of his pants, and when he's done with the speech, he starts to walk away. He realized that he had just tucked the entire American flag down the back of his pants. That one cracks me up. When you're tense, it inhibits intuition. When you relax, it opens up the field. It gives you a new perspective. So how do you balance this willful doing with conscious relaxation? So here's another short practice. This one's a little different. Again, if you like, you can close your eyes. Not recommended if you're driving. If you close your eyes, let's take a few moments to explore what relaxation feels like on the inside. And one area, of course, which I lead a lot if you practice with me, is to feel your tongue. And feel the width and the length of the tongue. And imagine you could relax your tongue so fully that it could fill your lower jaw. Just track that inner shift. Now, could you relax the root of your tongue down into your throat? Can you feel the arms like heavy drapes just hanging from your shoulders? Could you relax or soften your heels, soles of your feet? And is it possible now to relax or soften even just a little bit more on the inside? And as you relax, what do you feel? What do you notice? Notice what shifted just through a few minutes of sensing what could relax or soften. And if you like, you can open your eyes, so you can remain with them closed. I'm not watching. There's a lot to be said for the release of effort. And so what you'll find is that some traditions have you focus, push. Some traditions kind of help you to kind of apply that effort until there's sort of like a spontaneous letting go that can occur. When I think of willful practices, I also think of like the Native American ceremonies, which have kind of like an incredible sense of rigor If you're familiar with some of the dancing ceremonies where they pierce the skin and you're sort of suspended from these leather straps, and when it releases, part of the practice is you'll just go into that sense of release after the effort. So you'll find some traditions that are all about concentration, all about willful effort. And then you'll find other traditions that kind of explore the other end of the spectrum. One of my favorite readings is from a Tibetan teacher. If you like, you can close your eyes and just let these words just sort of resonate and pass through, and just sense what they feel like for you. Happiness cannot be found through great effort and willpower, but is already present in open relaxation and letting go. Don't strain yourself. There is nothing to do or undo. Whatever momentarily arises in the body-mind has no real importance at all, has little reality whatsoever. Why identify with and become attached to it, passing judgment upon it and ourselves? Far better to simply let the entire game happen on its own, springing up and falling back like waves, without changing or manipulating anything. And notice how everything vanishes and reappears, magically, again and again, time without end. Only your searching for happiness prevents you from seeing it. It's like a vivid rainbow which you pursue without ever catching, or a dog chasing its own tail. Although peace and happiness do not exist as an actual thing or place, it is always available and accompanies you every instant. So don't believe the reality of good and bad experiences. They're like today's weather, like rainbows in the sky. Wanting to grasp the ungraspable, you exhaust yourself in vain. But as soon as you open and relax this tight fist of grasping, infinite space is there, open, inviting, and comfortable. Make use of this spaciousness, this freedom, this natural ease. Don't search any further. Don't go into the tangled jungle looking for the great awakened elephant who's already resting quietly at home in front of your own hearth. Nothing to do or undo, nothing to force, nothing to want, and nothing missing. Marvelous. Everything happens by itself. If you like, you can open your eyes, deepen your breath. Wow, so what about that? Don't strain yourself. There's nothing to do or undo. Things arise, things fall away. They always have, they always will. And the thing that's messing up happiness is you're looking for it. It's already here. That sounds so good. The question becomes, when I try to practice that, sometimes, okay, I'm just going to let things be. My awareness is like a sailboat without a rudder. So maybe there's something about combining doing and being skillfully. When I was 15, I got initiated into transcendental meditation. I knew right away this is something I was going to be doing for the rest of my life. It just clicked for me. I like to ask people when they're in partnership, when they knew that they had some destiny or some karma with someone. It's fascinating to listen to that sense of knowing that's so hard to describe. Like, how do you really know something? So part of this is to cultivate the sense of awareness itself, presence itself. So let's explore here in this next meditation, very, very short, just a minute or two, the sense of relaxing and paying attention at the same time. So if you like, again, you can close your eyes. This is the sense of knowing that arises from relaxing and paying attention. Noticing your breath. As I breathe in, I know I am breathing in. As I breathe out, I'm aware of breathing out. Sensing this quality of knowing, to know the ease of the breath on the inside. To know the space between the breaths. To know the feeling of the belly rising and falling. As I hear, I know I am hearing. As I feel, I know I am feeling. And sensing this question. Can you sense the possibility of an effortlessness in knowing when the conditions are there? Effortless knowing of what is here. If you like, you can deepen your breath. If you like, you can open your eyes or remain with them closed. This effortlessness of knowing, the knowing that comes out of stillness, is so interesting to me. The anatomy of an insight. And of course, we have these moments when everything is still. Everything is so quiet. You can sense on so many subtle levels of what's happening. And then other times we're pulled into these strong states. And here we have the beautiful teaching about the hindrances and the 8 worldly winds. Everything that knocks you off presence. And you know, I'm sure, the difference between being angry and being with your anger. You know, at first you're angry, you're dominated by the state, it's all you know, this sense of like blind rage. And then at some point, you have a knowing. You know you're angry. Then you have a choice. There's a possibility sometimes where you can be with it. You can have tea with your anger. You can begin to explore, what were you wanting that didn't happen? What were you hoping for that didn't happen? What's the unmet need that's driving this anger? You can ask yourself what it's like to simply sense, if you bring a little bit of compassion to that anger, what might shift, what might move? So these states are the obstacles to presence. When you're caught in anger, judgment, blame, ill will, when you're caught in the opposite of aversion, the wanting, the planning, the craving, that sense of hunger for something different. When you're aware of the mind agitated in restlessness, worry, anxiety. And when you're aware of the mind caught in the opposite, not enough energy, the sense of sloth and torpor, of heaviness, of sleepiness, of kind of the depressive kind of energy inside. And when you're aware of the hindrance or the obstacle of doubt, self-doubt, doubting your path, a sense of the ruthless critic. knowing those states, the knowing that arises from application of being and application of doing, is what the practice is all about. In fact, the word Buddha means awake. So the Buddha was called the awakened one, or the knowing one. But then there's a question, knowing what? What would the Buddha know? I would suggest or hallucinate that it's about knowing how the mind works, knowing what's going on inside, but also knowing how you're relating to it. It's about knowing the basic laws of reality and remembering to bring reality into your awareness. It's about the knowing of impermanence, how clinging leads to suffering, how freedom arises when that tight sense of I and mine starts to relax. And having a sense of of the middle way, that sweet space of not too tight, not too loose. And this teaching of the middle way becomes instrumental when you explore the practices of doing and the practices of being. Kind of that sweet spot. There's a story of a student of meditation who went to the teacher and said, I just want you to know I quit. The teacher smiled and said, oh, just can you tell me why? He goes, well, I'm listening to you give instructions. You're telling one person to sit up straighter and lean in and apply themselves. And then you're telling the next person they should do more walks and have tea breaks. The inconsistency driving me nuts. The teacher smiled and said, what you're hearing is my teaching on the middle way. For some people, they absolutely need to sit up straighter and apply themselves. Others need to loosen the grip and trust and relax a little bit more. And this is where the practice gets so interesting, because it becomes a practice of self-awareness and self-diagnosis. What am I experiencing right now? And how do I bring loving attention to this? And you'll find, if you haven't already, and I'm sure you have already, that you've got multiple options in this practice. It's not just feel the breath. It might be to relax a little bit more. It might be to sharpen your awareness a little bit more. It might be to investigate the phenomena that's arising itself, to have tea with your experience, to look at your anger, to look at your wanting, to look at your restlessness, look at your sloth, look at your doubt closer. It might be a practice of loving kindness. So many options. So what's so interesting is we tend to fall into different camps. Not perfectly, but for some of us, we tend to be a little more doing oriented. Others of us are a little bit more being oriented. And kind of what I've noticed is when I'm anxious, I tend to get a little bit more control oriented, a little more hypervigilant. But for other people, it's different. It's more about, oh, there's some discomfort coming up. I'm gonna just let myself drift off into sloth and torpor. Let me numb out a little bit. All this becomes a very interesting exploration of how you're relating to the moment. I've noticed as well how hypervigilance is usually related to control. And with my own anxiety, I tend to ruminate on the worst possible thing that could happen. And again, knowing that gives me some options. I have other ways that I can explore that. So knowing the nature of your mind and these 5 energies, knowing anger and aversion, knowing planning, wanting, craving, knowing restlessness, anxiety, and worry, knowing that slothful, numbing quality of mind, knowing doubt and self-criticism. It's so, so powerful. It's so, so powerful. So in the Buddha's practice, he withdrew from the world for many years. deeply exploring the nature of reality. And anytime you pause, anytime you step back in your life, you're doing the same thing. You're moving out of reactive patterns and opening into a sense of knowing. Now, there may be some doing included as part of that. Like, let me just focus on my breath for a few minutes. Let me do some mindful walking as a way of gathering my attention. And then that sense of pausing brings you to mindfulness, to non-judging awareness. Einstein famously said that you can only solve a problem by shifting your consciousness. And no problem was solved in the same consciousness that created it. So to get out of any rut, to see from any new perspective, you have to shift your consciousness. And what happens when you shift your consciousness? Well, my sense is it has something to do with your sense of I and mine, your sense of identity, how tightly you're holding on to your perspective and your point of view. And I've noticed for myself that any time that sense of I and mine relaxes or becomes a bit amorphous, there's more ease. There's more of a sense of possibility, if you will. That softening opens me back up to that. I love that phrase, the field of infinite possibility. There's that age-old question. Would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? From what I can tell on my observations on the internet, there are a lot of people out there who would rather be right. There are a lot of people who are willing to die for their thoughts. And there's something noble to that, but there can also be some form of false identification. And when we apply that to ourselves, again, it allows us to open up to this field of infinite possibility, the quantum field. My father always wanted, when he would watch a political debate, he always wanted for each politician to say at the beginning that they might be wrong. And when we apply that to ourselves, what I noticed for myself when I do a retreat, occasionally in life, but more when I'm doing intensive practice, I begin to realize I don't have to believe every thought. Like, what if what I believe isn't true? Now, the Buddha said, this is kind of cool. Again, back to the sutta idea. He said, whoever understands this understands all of my teachings. Whoever practices this practice is practicing the essence of my teachings. And here it is, the sutta. Nothing whatsoever is to be clung to as I or mine. Nothing whatsoever is to be clung to as I or mine. It's this clinging to a false sense of self that's intrinsically tied to this reflex of doing, that's intimately connected to our own stress and really ultimately our own suffering. Your capacity to let go equals your capacity to be free and happy and to respond to life rather than to react. So what does it mean to let go of I or mine? I'd like to share with you a short meditation. We're kind of coming to the close here, but I like this one. If you like, you can close your eyes and take 3 slow, deep breaths. I'm going to share with you a series of phrases, and you can just sort of reflect on these phrases, or you can repeat them internally, or just kind of sense the phrase. I am sitting here meditating. And we'll remove the last word. I am sitting here. Remove the last word. I am sitting. Remove the last word. I am. Remove the last word. I. And now remove the I. In that glimpse of the absence of I, what do you notice? If you like, you can deepen the breath. If you like, you can open your eyes. This is a glimpse practice to sense just for moments of who am I in the absence of I and mine. Quite often, for me, most of my deepest enjoyable experiences, the sense of flow, the sense of connection, come from that suspension. But here's the bottom line. When you balance effort and relaxation, the result is knowing. And what do you know? You start to sense your true nature, and perhaps even the nature of reality. And of course, this opens up a deeper question. So then, what are you? What is this field of awareness, of pure knowing, with no I, no mine? There's a story of two little goldfish who are heading out to sea, and they see a big fish coming back from the ocean. The big fish says, "Beautiful water today, boys," swims by. One little goldfish turns to the other and says, "What the heck is water?" In that same way, are we aware of awareness? Are we aware of this field of awareness that we navigate through? Insights into this, the knowing, intuitive flashes, they only come when you've created the right conditions. When you disband judging and comparing and trying to figure things out, when you immerse yourself in the present moment, when you relax, when you're aware, amazing things can happen. So it becomes an incredibly intuitive way to practice. And this is where a sense of trust begins to be very important in your practice. In the beginning, it's like, okay, I'm going to watch the breath. And that's the practice. But it's so nuanced, and you'll only find this as your practice deepens. And I'm continually learning, continually learning. I remember one retreat, I was so straining to get some insights that I finally said, you know what? I'm simply going to keep my awareness in the body here and now and let go of any intention to figure things out. It seemed completely counterintuitive to let go and simply be here. And what's so fascinating is when I practiced that, a sense of knowing began to emerge. Quick story. John Rockefeller, first one, I think he was one of the first billionaires on the planet, had a tradition when he had a really big decision to make. He would go to his club, play a round of golf, and then go to his room and take a nap. And then he would kind of have his answer. There are lots of stories of people who consciously do problem solving by expending effort and then moving into relaxation and then having a sense of knowing. So this becomes a really interesting element of practice. When do you do and when do you be? Now, it's easy to over-intellectualize this. And Sin Ming, the third Zen patriarch, had this great line. He said, when you begin to look at reality, he said, to deny the reality of things is to miss their reality. To assert the emptiness of things is to miss their reality. The more you talk and think about it, the further astray you wander from the truth. Stop talking and thinking, and there's nothing you will not be able to know. That's a powerful line. Stop talking and thinking, and there's nothing you will not be able to know. And so, as you deepen your practice, it's important to know that there is a skillful place for concentration and willful effort. It's so important. You want to develop that muscle. But equally so, you want to develop the muscle of relaxing and allowing and opening to flow. I kind of think of it sometimes like people who play classical music. They can read music beautifully. They can bring music to life. But without sheet music, they're kind of lost. People are really into jazz who can't read music, they're really into flow. They can really feel things and express them, but they don't have that capacity to actually read music and the kind of the structure, discipline that comes from reading sheet music. And I think kind of what we want is both. The capacity to draw on the classical practices of concentration, of deepening relaxation. Getting those two as part of your practice, so powerful. I find for myself, I love to think of meditation in terms of focus, flow, and let go. Focus is willful attention, bringing yourself back again and again and again and arriving. And as you arrive and arrive and arrive, you begin to become more calm. And then you begin to sense everything that's changing. You begin to sense the witness, your capacity to observe what's happening and to let it be. And then you can explore at times, dropping every technique and allow things to be just as they are. In this being and doing, do, there is a very powerful arising of knowing. And as you deepen your practice, you can explore these two questions. In fact, we'll close with just a little 30-second meditation. As you close your eyes, notice the quality of presence. Is there a sense of how this moment wants you to be with it right now? Perhaps to narrow your attention as a way of gathering yourself in the here and now. Perhaps it's to relax, to give yourself permission to soften and feel and receive. Perhaps there's a calling for some form of compassion that you might apply right here, right now. Perhaps there's something that's calling for deeper investigation, maybe a rain meditation. Or maybe you can simply sit back and allow things to be exactly as they are. And sensing in these final moments how from the practices of doing, from the practices of being, there arises this sense of knowing. A sense of who you are as the one who is aware. Thank you so much for your time and attention. So many blessings in your practice. This is just juicy stuff, and I'm really honored to share these practices with you. So as you do out there, enjoy the knowing that arises along with it. Take good care.